Lesson 105 is on factoring by grouping. And what we'll be doing in these problems is you'll have a problem like the one that you see here, and you'll just think of groups first. You factor into groups first with common factors or terms with common factors, and then you see if there's anything else that you can factor. For example, look at that practice problem and look at those first two terms. You can see that they have an x in common. So go ahead and factor that out of the first two terms. X parentheses a plus 2b. And so we factor something out of the first two terms. Look at the second two terms. They both have a y in common, and then the coefficient, they both have a 3 in common too, right? So you can factor that out as well. So you say plus 3y times a plus 2b. Now, this is the part that sometimes gets a little tricky. You have to consider what's in the parentheses as a factor, which it is, right? Anything inside parentheses like that is considered one factor. For example, if we really had x times y plus 3 times y times y, that y would be a common factor between the two terms there, and we could factor it out, and we'd say y times x plus 3y. Now, in the same way, we can take that binomial in parentheses there and factor it out. It's a factor that's common to both of those groups. And so we can say x plus 3y times that whole thing, a plus 2b. And so that's our factored expression there. It just seems kind of confusing sometimes when you have a binomial like that in parentheses, but I mean, you know that. You know that anytime you have a factor that's common to several terms, you can factor it out. Let's do another one. Look at the first pair and the second pair. That's usually how you can do these, is just look at the pairs of terms and find a common factor between them, because they are designed to factor into two binomials. So the first pair, they have a c in common, and so we can factor that out. C times a plus 5x. The second pair, they have a d in common, and they also have a negative 2 in common. So let's factor the negative 2d out, and we'll end up with an a plus 5x. So we have a binomial that they both have in common. That's like a common factor. So we can factor that out now. And we'll end up with c minus 2d times a plus 5x. If you're not sure that you really believe that that works like that, go ahead and expand those two binomials out, and you'll get back to the original set of terms there, the original algebraic expression. Let's go ahead and do one more. Let's factor this out by grouping. And so let's group that first pair together and see a common factor there. They have a c in common, so we'll factor that out. C times 3x minus t. And then look at the second pair. They have a y in common, and they also have a 2. So we'll say plus 2y times 3x minus t. And so now these two groups have a binomial in common, 3x minus t, so we can write this c plus 2y times 3x minus t. And so that's our factored form of that expression. If you're not sure about these, you can always expand that back out to check your work. Okay, well that's all for lesson 105.